Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be covering The Amazing Spider-Man number 35. We are going to be going through the entire book, so spoiler warning ahead, and at the end I will be giving my thoughts and opinions on it, so stay tuned for that, and if you enjoyed this video at any point, make sure to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's begin. If you've been keeping up with the story, you'll remember that on the previous issue we were left on a crazy cliffhanger, and if not crazy, definitely unexpected. The Queen Goblin showed up and presumably tried helping out Spider-Man, and as that was happening, Norman Osborn was undigging Kraven after being buried alive by Spider-Man, effectively saving Kraven's life last minute. We begin this issue with Norman Osborn and Kraven working together to rebuild the staff that's able to capture Green Goblin's sins, in hopes of being able to impel Spider-Man with it to be able to capture the Green Goblin's sins that are stuck inside of his head now. And those sins are what's causing him to proceed with any evil deed his mind comes up with. For the most part, he's going for revenge. In this entire scenario, Norman Osborn is going through an entire monologue, and he does bring up the fact how Kraven is no longer a fan of guns. While all that's going on, we move over to the location Red Hook. I'm not familiar with it, but that's just where we are. And it looks like Hammerhead's goons have taken out some of the Owl's goons. Hammerhead's thugs do claim how they're gonna know it was them. They have been bickering back and forth. But Hammerhead claims that he's gonna spread misinformation to all the gang members and how it actually wasn't them, it was another gang group. Like for example, he's gonna go up to Crime Master and he's gonna tell them that it was Diamondback, or he's gonna go up to Mr. Negative's goons and claim that it was Black Mariah. You kind of get the picture there. One of his goons does claim how it's gonna start some conflict, of course, between all the gangs in the city, and Hammerhead just laughs and tells him how he's smarter than he looks. After that, we do address the previous cliffhanger on Spider-Man's side as well. We cut over to the Holland Tunnel where his action's going down, and as I previously thought, it looks like the Queen Goblin is genuinely trying to help out Spider-Man in this scenario. But she does claim how the sins were more oriented to go towards Norman Osborn. Knowing how those sins were inside of her, she does take pity in Spider-Man in this scenario to try to help him out at least. Spider-Man isn't quite listening to all she has to say, claiming that his mind is on fire, effectively being only Spider-Man and his evil thoughts. In his moment of disillusion, he glances over at MJ and Paul and he starts getting really mad, but he claims that it's what makes him feel alive, and in that moment he gets a part of that metallic guardrail that's on the side of highways and slams the Queen Goblin away, laughing as he does it, essentially just spitting at her offer to help. Spider-Man goes back to looking at MJ and Paul, and he's like, "Paul, a word?" MJ tries persuading Paul to run, but he's trying to question like, what? No. But MJ claims that Spider-Man won't hurt her, turns over to look at Spider-Man, and questions to him, "Isn't that right, Peter?" After MJ powers up her slot machine randomizer bracelet that she got from Paul, that gives her randomized powers, as we've seen in the past, Spider-Man's left wondering where she got that thing, and then he remembers, oh yeah, Paul, instantly getting jealous, claiming that Paul took her from him. MJ does stand up for herself by stating that nobody took her from anyone, she's a big girl, she can make her own decisions. So Spider-Man instantly switches his target from Paul over to MJ. He's about to beat her down, like, this is crazy, claiming how MJ betrayed him, and this is the moment he really is out for revenge. But before any real fight can actually happen, the Queen Goblin recovers and bonks Spider-Man in the back of the head, claiming how that's it for the kindness that she was offering to him. The Queen Goblin attacks Spider-Man, inevitably ending up with her holding him up by the neck. She claims to Spider-Man how she's given up everything to return the sins back to Norman Osborn, and if Spider-Man's not gonna willingly return the sins back to Norman Osborn, she's gonna tear them right out of his throat. MJ catches the Queen Goblin off guard and uses her power to be able to hold onto the Queen Goblin by the neck and throws her away from Spider-Man, claiming that she doesn't care what's gotten into him, no one's gonna get Peter Parker today. As Spider-Man does get set free, he claims to MJ how he appreciates the romantic gesture, but he's still gonna proceed with his revenge attacks and chases after Paul. Of course, Paul does try to make a getaway, but good luck trying to run away from Spider-Man. Spider-Man, right? Especially when there's a Green Goblin all in his mind. Spider-Man grabs onto Paul and takes him to a very great height, dangling Paul over the edge. Spider-Man claims to Paul how he should never have shown up in that world, claiming that he doesn't belong. Paul tells Spider-Man that he is not going anywhere. Do what you gotta do, man. Spider-Man takes that offer and lets go of him and says, "Works for me," sending Paul to fall to his doom. Kraven shows up standing on top of a road sign, getting Spider-Man's attention, claiming that this isn't worthy of him, and Spider-Man challenges Kraven by telling him, "Do tell." Cutting back to Paul that's now falling to his doom, MJ manages to save him by using her randomized power. Previously it was used as a card rope thing to latch onto the Queen Goblin and toss her out of the way, saving Spider-Man. In this form, I'm assuming it's used in the same way, but in this case, saving Paul. At this moment, Norman shows up and walks up behind MJ and apologizes for getting both of them dragged into this. And he claims how he's gonna take it from there and Peter will be okay. MJ questions to Norman what he's gonna do, but all Norman says is, "I enjoyed getting to know you, Mary Jane," alluding that there's something else going on. Now back to the confrontation with Kraven and Spider-Man. Kraven proceeds to explain to Spider-Man how he has poisoned him unintentionally, and that poison was definitely meant for another, and now he wishes for this to come to an end. Spider-Man replies with a very cocky remark about how he beat Kraven and how it was very fun to stuff him in a grave, and he's gonna proceed to hurt Kraven really bad. Kraven acknowledges the difference in power levels here, and he knows that he's gonna get beaten down by Spider-Man, but he proudly accepts it and he takes off his coat, tosses it aside with the spear that he brought to impale Spider-Man with, and he throws himself at Spider-Man ready to attack. Spider-Man himself laughs maniacally as he jumps into the fight, tossing his mask away. A very hardcore fight ensues where Spider-Man's just beating down on Kraven, and as he's doing that, he's also giving him very degrading banter. While that's happening, Norman goes over to the spear that Kraven tossed and he pulls it out from where it landed, using this moment as an opportunity because Spider-Man's distracted. Spider-Man pursues to degrade Kraven as he beats him down, but Kraven claims that Spider-Man has always been a very noble adversary. He's taking all these punches and kicks very proudly from Spider-Man. It annoys Spider-Man so much to the point where he has to ask why he's so happy. Kraven, laughing at Spider-Man, tells him how after being stuck in a coffin with the weapon, with the purpose of following in his father's footsteps, he inevitably didn't overcome to the dark thoughts and follow the same path as his father. Kraven knows he faced his darkness and he didn't pull the trigger, and what makes Kraven happy in this scenario is knowing that however he will die, it wouldn't be by his own hand. He claims to Spider-Man how he's in fact grateful of this gift, of his second chance in fact, and claims that he owes Spider-Man this, his salvation. He holds on to Spider-Man, and while all this is happening, Norman Osborn is continuously sneaking into the scenario, and now that Kraven has Spider-Man in a lock, Norman's gonna strike with the spear, and he impales Spider-Man from the back. Now impaled, Spider-Man's Green Goblin sins are able to retract back into the spear. Once that's finished, he tosses the spear, just so that he's not holding it. With the sins now removed from Spider-Man, MJ walks up to him and he desperately tries to apologize to her for everything that he's done. While Peter's distracted with MJ, Kraven takes the spear and claims to Norman how he's gonna go before Spider-Man collects himself. Norman does question about the spear, but Kraven says bind it with the ceremony and buried it under the ground, and it's not gonna bother him or anyone ever again. Now, after leaving Norman Osborn to his thoughts, he's thinking to himself about how the Queen Goblin's just in the distance, smiling to herself and content possibly. He acknowledges that Kraven doesn't see her, but he does. He questions to himself about how long she's possibly been watching. She ends up flying away. Days pass and Peter's watching the news as Randy's reporting it. Peter's worried that all the havoc that he's done over the past few days are gonna be marked back to Spider-Man. But Norman over the phone tries to reassure him, claiming that, yeah, that costume has previously been linked to like Eddie Brock, so don't even worry about it, dude. People are gonna forget. They're not even gonna connect the dots and say you're Spider-Man evilized. You're good. Norman does try telling Peter to take some time off and relax, and to just take it easy overall. They both finish their phone call with each other, and Peter's just left there looking at his costume, and he's thinking to himself like, time off? After I've been through all that? He'd feel guilty if he did. So Spider-Man suits up and goes off into the city to fight some crime. Now our story ends with Norman Osborn, who's just thinking to himself. He's claiming confirming how he definitely knew that the spear was meant to hold the Green Goblin's sins, but inevitably the sins would find a way home somehow, if given the chance. And they've definitely come home. Norman looks down on his shiny desk and sees a reflection, but it's not of him, it's of the Green Goblin. Norman manages to muster a slight noise coming out of his mouth, but he instantly covers it with his hands, effectively leaving us on a cliffhanger, and that's how that story ends. So what do I think about the comic book itself? Well, honestly, I thought it ended pretty well. I thoroughly enjoyed this one as well. The thing with Norman and Kraven working together, that thing I understood. After Kraven being saved by Norman and effectively making him reborn again, with a very new outlook on life, Kraven feels grateful for Norman, but it feels kind of silly over the fact that this whole ordeal started with Kraven accidentally missing and getting Spider-Man. I mean, sure, Spider-Man did push Norman out of the way, but like, dude, hold back your spear, man. Don't just jab that motherfucker in there. We do get a little bit more of Hammerhead's intentions from issue 31. Well, kind of, not really. We just get the idea that he's the one behind causing all this havoc. What havoc am I talking about? Well, all that chaos that happened back in issue 31, and he's also in this issue causing some more chaos, and he's gonna spread the news that all the different factions are now turning on each other with the hope of starting a faction war in the city. Previously, I did think the confrontation with Spider-Man and the Queen Goblin was gonna be interesting. In this case, they didn't go that route quite as well, but at least it was written in a way where any help that was offered by the Queen Goblin to Spider-Man was just written off as Spider-Man, of course, just being overtaken by the voice in his head to the point where it just overcomes him and he just outright can't hear what she's saying. But that was followed by the quickest turn of series of events that just happen. So like, after Spider-Man just loses his mind full of hatred, he tosses Queen Goblin aside, goes after Paul, then actually confronts with MJ, but before a fight actually happens, the Queen Goblin recovers and like bonks Spider-Man in the back of the head, and now she has him by the throat, and then MJ shows up, and then she's like, hey, remember my very inconsistent power? Well, it's actually being consistent for me right now and being used how I want, and grabs onto the Queen Goblin and tosses her aside, saving Spider-Man. But then we're back to square one where Spider-Man's just after Paul in hopes of revenge, and we do get the moment where Spider-Man does toss Paul just off a very great height in hopes of him just, you know, getting offed. And the craziest part is he doesn't even look at the man fall. He gets distracted by Kraven. I did find it funny though how the device that Paul created for MJ, the slot machine randomizer thing, was effectively the thing that saved his life in this issue from falling. I mean, sure, yeah, it was MJ controlling it, but like his device that he created, it just came full circle for that guy. Now the conflict with Kraven and Spider-Man, I liked it, but I would have appreciated Kraven actually being able to fight back in some form. Like, he got this new outlook on life, but he's just taking Spider-Man's punches just because? Like, fight back, man. For example, it would have been a cool comparison to when he was fighting back the red guys back a few issues ago, to him fighting Spider-Man right now and, you know, just trying to overcome this fight. But the way the fight ended, I actually liked, with Kraven holding down Spider-Man while Norman actually impelled him, effectively being Spider-Man's salvation. That was pretty cool. Now, if Norman Osborn is actually getting turned into the Green Goblin, this is actually where I think it happened, as he impelled Spider-Man with the spear. Sure, some of the sins go into the spear, but some find their way home, you know what I mean? Another thing that strengthens that case is the fact that the Queen Goblin was just watching from afar and smiling in possible content. And now that leads me to believe that the Green Goblin sins are back with Norman Osborn, and that was her goal the entire time. Well, her and Kraven's, but you know, Kraven had a whole character thing going on. But Green Goblin's goal, possibly fulfilled. We might be seeing the Green Goblin soon for sure. I did enjoy the moment where Peter Parker put on the classic Spider-Man suit, you know, the red and blue one. I don't know why, but it gave me hopes that the future stories are gonna be okay. I don't know, maybe because I enjoyed this issue. That's the only reason why I possibly think that. But I liked seeing Spider-Man in that old costume after the past few issues. One last thing to point out is how the cover of this issue has like the goblinized Spider-Man, and going into this issue, you really expect kind of the worst of this character, you know? But no, Spider-Man's not goblinized looking all like that. He's just in his black suit with a goblin voice in his head that's just controlling him to do misdeeds. And I think the cover definitely portrays that very well. But those are just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.